All right. First off, can everyone see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you can see. All right, cool. Um, yeah, so welcome to Research Methods and Analysis 1, doing it over the summer. I'm sure you're all thrilled to be doing some research method and stats over all summer, but here we are. We're trying to make it not too painful. I'm Jeff. I'm a doctoral student here in the psychology department, specifically within the developmental. So yes, let me just start off with a little bit about myself. I got my undergrad and master's at a small PA state school. And for the first like couple years in my career, I started working on attachment. So like parent-child attachment. This is a paper that was just recently published about depression and attachment. Anyway, so that was like the first part of my career where I focused on attachment and some of its outcomes like friendship quality, depression, all that good stuff. But more recently, and I think, well, not recently, within the past 2 years, but more interestingly, I have focused on social media. So my specific research looks at how people use social media, what they're doing, and how that's related to well-being. So things like happiness, depression, self-esteem, life satisfaction, stuff like that. So throughout this course, I'll be bringing up my own research, but also I think I'm assuming 99% of people here have some form of social media. I think it's really relevant and hopefully relatable to everyone. Anyways, that's a little bit about myself. So now I've been working a lot with social media. Let's see. All right. Today is basically just going to be all about the syllabus and the general layout of the course. I don't think we're going to get into any actual material today. There may be a chance at the end, hopefully we have like 15, 20 minutes left at the end to get into groups and start thinking about a research idea. But I'll get more into that as we talk about what this class actually makes up. So for the purposes of exams and stuff like that, I don't think there's going to be too much information here, but I'll let you know if there is. So make sure that you keep notes down. Anyways, here's my contact information. You can find it through eCampus, probably the easier way to go, or just through any one of my emails that I send. My office hours here, so these are guaranteed office hours, so they're right after class. It really should say 2:30. I'll just work, 2:45, right? Yeah, 2:45. I'll start immediately right after class and go until 4:30. As the semester gets on, I'll hold a lot more office hours than here. I also have some at Tuesday, 10 to 11. I'll hold a lot more than what I have listed here. And hopefully people utilize them. You'll see why when I start talking about some of the assignments. But I'll start holding office hours over the weekend, so that way you can come see me on the weekend if you have any questions. And then obviously other times by appointment. This is the only class I'm teaching this semester, so I'm pretty much free to meet whenever if these times don't work for you. At any point, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or to just use the raise hand feature or just unmute yourself and speak up. All right, so before we jump into the syllabus and all that, I want to start off with talking about why that we should study research methods. Most psychology courses, I guess this is the outline for today. We're going to start off talking about why we study research methods, some of the goals of the course, and then we're really going to break down the syllabus, what to expect, all the assignments, some generic tips for success, and hopefully we can get into some group brainstorming ideas. But before we start, what is this course all about? So why do we want to study research methods? Most psychology courses that you've had, I'm assuming people have had maybe intro to psych or human dev, maybe even a cognitive class. So hopefully this isn't your first, but if it is, perfectly fine if it's your first psych class. But all the rest of the other psych classes really focus on what they know about behavior and mental processes. We're going to dive deeper into that and really focus on how we know those things. So, if you think back to, I don't know, any other topic in psychology that you might have learned about. So how does early life adversity impact functioning later in adolescence, right? And I can throw all these facts at you saying like, oh, people who were abused early in their life, are maybe more likely to have disorganized attachment later on or something like that. And we can spew off all these facts, but how do we actually know that? Well, we use research methods and we use analysis to figure out and make sense of all this data, and we can put it into these plain simple English words of like, this is related to that. Well, if you look behind the scenes, it's all research methods and analysis, and so that's what we're going to focus on in this semester, and then whenever you move on to 204. And this is basically what I just said. All areas of psychology utilize research methods and data analysis techniques to reach a more thorough understanding. It's essentially what I just said in the previous slide. Yeah, so here are just some different areas of psychology. Some I brought up, but we have like developmental, which I'm in, biological, cognitive, social, IO, which is industrial organization. So it's a lot of how to get people to work well in groups in the workplace. And then health psychology. All these things, all of these fields use research methods and analysis. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in 203, as well as 204, which you'll take next semester or at some point in the near future. So why should we study research methods? Well, first off, we want to teach you how to actually conduct research in psychology. So one of the things that you're going to be learning throughout this semester is, good practices whenever you're designing a study. So you got to think about your sample. You got to think about, are you going to be asking, what age range you want to focus on, because it matters. How are you going to collect those participants? Because there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and doing it one way may influence the generalizability of your results. So, if you sample one certain way, you might not be able to say, hey, this is true for everyone, because you didn't sample properly. You're also going to learn, how to analyze data. So, we're going to be focusing on how to analyze correlations, and I believe we'll get into some one sample t-tests. And do not worry if these words, you've never heard these words before, perfectly fine. I'll explain a little bit more later on, but we'll also get to that throughout the semester. So you're going to learn how to do data analysis. However, I would venture for 90-95% of you aren't interested or going to go on to become academic researchers. That's just plain fact. The majority of psych undergrads don't go on to do that type of work, and that's perfectly fine. Research methods isn't geared towards those people. I mean, it's geared towards everyone, but we really want you to become a good consumer of research. And this is really important because we live in this information age, right? We're constantly getting bombarded with research, whether you know it or not. Think about news stations when they'll do reports and they say like, oh, we polled these people, and here are the results. Or you see it all the time online, whether it's in social media, just anywhere. You see it all the time. Research is happening all the time and is being presented to you. Hopefully, one of the things you'll learn throughout this course is you should take things with a grain of salt until you have access to figuring out how they did that research. Good consumers of research watch out for a lot of things. So misleading reports of good scientific studies. This actually just happened to me. I am doing a talk at a conference, and the marketing people at the conference looked at my research. They said, hey, your research is really interesting, and we want to create a 5-sentence blurb about your research to send it to the media people that are coming to this conference. So that way they can come to you, they look at this blurb and they say, oh, this is really interesting. Let me go talk to me, the guy doing the presentation or the talk. And so essentially what it is. Anyways, they came up with this 5-sentence summary that really misrepresented my research. So this is like the head people at this conference, they saw my research and they summarized it. And I was like, wait, this summary completely misrepresents. So long story short with this, a summary, my research found that people who are addicted to social media actually value happiness more. So this was that one of that papers that I showed at the very beginning. But essentially, people who are addicted aren't are never happy with their current levels of happiness. They always want more, and they want different types of happiness. And one of the reasons why I suggest, so that's what my research showed, right? When I looked at the analyses, that's what they showed. And one of the suggestions that I came up with in the discussion was, hey, think about Instagram. How many people here with like thumbs up or whatever, how many people have an Instagram account? All right, just the people on camera, I believe that's almost everyone, maybe. So one of the reasons I suggested is, hey, on Instagram, people really try to portray their happy lives, right? You can't. There's things like Finsta, and there's certain people who don't always post their happy lives, and they post more real. But a lot of times, Instagram is about posting this rosy portrayal of your life. And if, let's say, I focused on adolescents, but even think about it in yourself. If you're constantly viewing Instagram and people use it a lot, think about your own usage rates. What are you constantly seeing? Oh, look, Kim Kardashian is posting a really hot picture, living a really lavish lifestyle. Oh, there's my friends who are having fun, and my friends who are looking good and may or may not be using filters. But I guarantee you, I've taken pictures for girls. You take thousands of pictures and you pick the very best one that you're most satisfied with and that you're happiest with. And this is what you're seeing. Now think about you yourself. Do you think that Kim Kardashian is happy 24/7? No, right? No one's happy. Majority of people aren't happy 24/7, but that's all you're seeing. So if you're an adolescent and maybe even just subconsciously yourself, all you're seeing is these happy lives. All these other people are always happier than me, because you yourself, of course you have happy times, but you also are a normal person like everyone else, and you experience negatives or just neutral states. So this is one of the reasons that I suggested, is people are always viewing these happy lives, which may cause people to want to be happy more. And so they came back in this little, so that's my research in a nutshell, right, with that I'm presenting. And they came back with, hey, our short summary of your research is you found that people who are addicted to social media are happy or value happiness because they are constantly viewing people online who are happier. And the way they worded it, and I really should pull it up, but the way they worded it made it sound that I specifically studied what people were looking at. So I didn't. In my own research, I didn't know what they were looking at. I just looked at their addiction levels, and then I looked at a bunch of various outcomes. So I didn't actually get a chance to manipulate or study what people were actually looking at. Now, that's what I'm doing in my dissertation, so I'm following up on it. But they really misrepresented my research because they overstated my findings. They really said, hey, you specifically looked at this, and you can confirm that people value happiness more because they are constantly viewing other people on Instagram. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's back up a second. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's what I'm suggesting. I'm saying future research should look at it, but that's not specifically what my research said. So this is a really long-winded story, but just to show that, I hopefully think that I did a good scientific study, and which is for the sake of the argument, say it was a good scientific study, but they were misleading what I was actually finding. And you see this a lot that happens online, like Psychology Today, any of these online or anywhere through news, research gets misrepresented all the time. So hopefully one of the things that you can learn throughout this study or throughout this class is maybe there's some red flags that you can look out for, and you yourself can make the decision. You'll find studies with methodological flaws. So you see it all the time. Like on news, they'll be like, oh, we polled Republicans. You'll see it on Fox. We polled, Republicans or whatever, and this is what they found. And then if you actually find out who did you actually poll? They polled 100 diehard Republicans at a gun convention. And whenever you think about it, you're like, okay, are those 100 diehard gun-loving Republicans, and not saying there's anything wrong with that, but are they representative of all conservatives, right? And no, that's absolutely not true. So, but yet the news are saying, hey, this is true of conservatives because we polled these really specific 100 people at this gun convention. But they won't tell you that it was at a gun convention, right? But if you can look into it more, you'll find out, there was a lot of methodological flaws. And some of this is non-intentional, right? They just don't know. But you can do this intentionally. You can make a lot of money for private companies as a researcher by getting them the findings that they want to find. I can design a study to get you almost any result that you want just because I understand research practices. I understand that, okay, I could sample these type of people and still say it was a random sample, but it really isn't, but it kind of is. So there's all types of things that you can do that are flawed to get the results that you want. And so one of the things that, once again, you'll learn through this course is to identify that. Obviously, things like pseudoscience, want to be on the lookout for that. Happens all the time. The top 10 tricks to not get COVID, and it's all just complete nonsense. So, look out for pseudoscience. Psychology is not immune. So this is one of the big reasons that, you're taking this course. Of course, this first point, we want you to learn the behind the scenes, how to actually do stuff. But more importantly, we want you to become a good consumer of research. That was really long-winded, and I went off on a little rant there, but any questions so far about anything that I talked about?
So I was just going to ask, in case there are methodological flaws, I'm sorry, I'm from Italy, so my accent is, but if there are flaws, would people get in trouble for that? Like, is there any repercussion because of that? Or can you just like get away with it
So
if it's not intentional?
that's a good question. So there are, it depends. So if I am an academic researcher, right, I'm at a university or I'm going through the empirical, and we'll learn more about this word, I think next class or maybe next week, but like what an empirical study is. But if I'm publishing my work in reputable journals or really any journal, it goes through a process of like, so I submit my paper and other people who are knowledgeable in that field will have to review it. So they'll go through like 2 or 3 reviewers and they'll dive deep into your study and be like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Anytime you submit a paper, you get back like 6 pages of just nothing but comments that tear apart your study, but they want you to become better. And so you can address these comments and then you submit it back to the journal and then it gets published. Or sometimes you have to go through multiple. So a lot of the times it can get caught there. If something is seriously flawed, someone will pick up on it in this empirical. If you submit it to a journal, someone will pick up on it and be like, hey, this is wrong, here's why it's wrong, and your findings are just, lack of better words, garbage. Now if you do this, and now there are obviously ways to hide things. All researchers can lie. I can manipulate my data. I can just create fake data. And maybe that might not get caught. Actually, I think there was a recent something out of Germany, like one of the top psych people in Germany was reported as like basically faking his data for years. And he's like so it can come out. So are there researchers doing it? Possibly. Yes, there are. Now, I talked about if you work for a private company or a company, I can, me myself, I can design a research study to get whatever results that you want to get. Whatever you want to find, I can make it happen. Is that stuff getting caught? Probably not. Because you would never know. Like if you go to Kroger or, think of a grocery store here. I don't know. That's a really bad example. But they might find that like, oh, our Kroger customer satisfaction levels are the highest of any store in West Virginia, right? And are we going to be able to, like, could you or I ask them, how did you do that? How did you determine that? Like, probably not. So are they getting caught? Most likely not. However, at an academic, all the research papers that you will be reading or that you should be reading for this course, whenever you're conducting your own study, though you can be confident that all the methodological flaws have been taken out, they've been caught. So hopefully that answers your question. So part yes, part no, they're not always getting caught, and there's really no repercussions for private companies. All right. Moving on, what to expect, myth versus truths for this class. Some of you may have heard things, from other people, like this course is challenging. Yes, this course is not, one of the easier courses in the department. However, The way this course is structured, and I'll talk more a little bit about it later, is we want to see you grow. So there will be an assignment that's due. If you look at the course syllabus, and once again, I'll bring it up later, there's something due almost every week, and like assignment wise. And the purpose of those assignments are kind of all leading up to a final paper. However, a lot of the assignments are like, we'll do an intro outline, then I'll provide you feedback on that. You incorporate that feedback and do an intro draft. You'll have a methods draft. You'll have a results draft that I will provide a lot of feedback on, and you incorporate that feedback and you put it into a final paper. This is also kind of getting at the second point of you will do a lot of writing. Yes, you will do a lot of writing. However, it's done in short chunks every week, and I'm going to really suggest / really hope that you guys keep up with the revisions on these assignments, because at the very end of the semester you have to have this paper of this research study, right? We're going to design and conduct a research study. We're going to analyze that data, and you're going to write a paper. If you keep up with these assignments, at the end, all you have to do is put all these assignments together, make a couple formatting changes, obviously incorporate my feedback, but you should have a pretty much completed paper if you keep up with these assignments and you do the feedback with them. So that's what I'm going to implore that you do. Please keep up with the assignments, look at my feedback, incorporate my feedback. One of the biggest ways to lose points on your assignments is don't incorporate feedback. So I'll give you an assignment, you'll do it, I'll be like, hey, here's how you should do things. Maybe I'll even give you sentences to use. I'll be like, use this sentence. If I don't see it in your final paper, you're going to lose heavy points. Just because, I want you to incorporate that feedback. So this course is challenging. However, I think if you keep up with it, it should be okay. Another thing, we'll have a quiz at the end of every week. So these quizzes are really easy. Let me put that out there. They're like anywhere from like 7 to 10 questions. All you need to do is get 40 points throughout the entire semester. So 80 questions, you have to get 80 questions right, and we'll give you like around 100 to get an A, to get like 100%. I think each question's worth like half a point, and they're all really simple questions. Like actually, I think I have one somewhere, but I'm trying to go through. I don't think there's going to be any questions out of today, but it would be like, this course will focus on what? And then we'll give you like, they're all multiple choice, by the way. And then, like on how we know things, and then the question B or answer B would be like what we know. And so they're really simple, and they will all come from the notes. So, weekly quizzes sound like a lot. They're really not that bad. They should take you a couple minutes. The exams obviously are bigger. I'm actually getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about this a little bit later. This course is challenging, yes, but there's a lot of opportunities to do well. If you're ever struggling, please come to my office hours. I will work with you for however long you need. Just as an example, like last semester, I had someone that wanted help on like writing their introduction. I sat with her for an hour and a half working on the introduction. More than happy, more than willing to work with you for however long you need. Already talked about the second point. You will do a lot of writing, but it's cumulative. It's, you work on that introduction draft, you do the correction, you do it well in the draft, you won't have many changes to do in the final paper. So just keep up with it. There are a lot of assignments, I understand, just try to keep up with them. You will learn statistics. So this is true. So obviously these are all true. However, I want to ask a question. I'm going to paste something in the chat. We're doing a little thing right now. All right. So go to this website in the chat and type in the code. There should be an option to type in the code 3092 space 8293. And I want you to answer, what comes to mind when you hear the word statistics? So what's the first thing I think you can do multiple answers. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word statistics? And I'm going to pull up, it's going to create like a word cloud. So just keep on typing in answers. And be as honest as possible. I want to know how, and I want to know, be as honest as possible.
Could you go back to the code really quick?
It should, oh, can you still see my screen? It should be
Uh,
the top 3092.
oh, sorry.
Pain and suffering. All right, we'll wait a couple more seconds. Keep them, keep them putting stuff in if you can think. But I'm gonna go through a couple of these. All right. So what do we have here? So what's the first thing that you think of when you hear the word statistics? Math. Okay, pretty fair, right? Math is probably the big one. Numbers, data. Um, for this class, statistics really isn't, I think, what a lot of people think statistics are. So yes, there will be a little math that you have to do. However, I would say that for most people, what math that you need, you learned in sixth grade for this class. So, as long as you know order of operations, you know how to add, how to subtract, how to multiply, divide, if you can take like the square root using a calculator, like a scientific calculator, you'll be fine. There are formulas. I saw it somewhere in here. There are formulas, but we'll give them to you. I'm never going to make you memorize. I myself can't memorize formulas, and so there will be formulas for like finding the standard deviation of something, and we'll get into that later. But there's a formula for it, and we'll give you the formula. Yeah, so math, there's some math involved, but not a lot. Confusing, hard, pain and suffering. I promise you that they're not going to be as bad as what you're imagining this semester. Even next semester, the math is relatively easy. We work through you, you'll have a couple stats assignments, like three, I think, three or four, and I'll work with you through like the first question, and so that way all you have to do is replicate that for the second one, replicate that for the third one. So it's really not going to be that bad. I promise you. Just don't be too worried about it. If math is not your strong suit, don't be too worried about it. If you can understand that 0.03 is smaller than 0.05, that's a lot of what research methods involves. And let me show you. So I want to show you something, and hopefully this doesn't scare people off too much. But I'm going to go through and actually show you some behind the scenes results of things. So this is what, we have to make this bigger. So this is what actually a correlation output looks like in SPSS. So whenever you use one of the programs that we're going to be using is called SPSS. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but this is what an output looks like. And I want to focus on this box right. Focus on this box right here. Oh, that definitely did not work. This box right here. It's depressive symptom box. So, and I'm going to teach you how to read this in later days, in later classes, but so I'm going to go really fast through this. But all this box shows is we see this number right here is 0.000 is less than 0.05. So that means it's significant. This relationship is significant between social media addiction and depression. So we see that this is also this 0.242 is a positive number. So this means that it's a positive correlation, or as social media addiction increases, depression increases. So I don't, so there's not a lot of math going on here, right? Whenever you do it on a computer, I understand that this number is less than 0.05. And once again, we'll get into all this later on, but that means it's significant, and that this number is positive, and so that means there's a positive correlation. If it's negative, like this one, it means there's a negative correlation. So more social media addiction is equal. People who report being more addicted to social media report lower life satisfaction. So that's all that negative number means. And we'll get into like what 0.242, what does that mean? Well, it's a relatively weak correlation. Anyway, so this is what a correlation output looks like. And whenever in assignments that you have to interpret a correlation, that's kind of really what you're doing. There's a couple more things we'll have you do, but that's basically the bulk of it. One of the things you'll learn about this semester is like a t-test. So what a t-test does is it compares two groups and assesses, are they different? So one of the things I did is I ran a t-test on my data, and I wanted to know how males and females differ in their levels of social media addiction. And we come over here, we go to significance, it's less than 0.05. So we know there is a significant difference between males and girls. I mean, yeah, males and females. And what is it? Females, and we see their average social media addiction score, females report being more addicted to social media. It's not a big difference, but it is statistically significant. So think about on a scale of, I think it's 1 to 4, 1 to 5 maybe. So like a 0.4-ish difference, 2.2 or 2.3 to 2.6. So 0.3 difference, not a huge deal, but it is statistically significant. There is a difference between males and females. So that's one of the things that you'll have to do this semester. Not all that crazy, right? So hopefully you'll see this really is not all that bad. But I'm going to get into some more advanced stats here. Something that you won't have to do even in 204. So maybe so you won't even have to do this next semester in the next level stats. But I want to show you that they're not scary. Or hopefully I'm showing you they're not. Hopefully no one's getting scared because of this. There's things that are called like regressions, where I can say, does social media use predict changes in depression? And what we find here, let's go to the significance level again. That's one of the things I care about. Oh, it is significant. So we find, because this is positive, because this is positive, that more social media use is related to more depression. All right, that's what a regression shows. Now, I want to understand, does this differ for boys and girls? So does this relationship between social media use and depression, is that the same for boys and girls? Well, let's look. So this very intense output, one that you'll never see ever because we don't do moderation. And even a lot of grad students don't even like doing this. But I'm just looking at this p-value, which you'll learn about p-values. Oh, okay, this interaction is significant. It looks a lot better in a graph. So let me put it in a graph for you. And this blue line is males. So as social media addiction increases, so we have low to high, there's not really much change in depression, right? Like it goes from like 11.8 to like 12.1. No really changes from really addicted people to really not addicted people for boys. But look at it for girls. So for girls, girls who are addicted, which is up here, because think about this graph, girls who are addicted are way more depressed than girls who aren't addicted. It's like almost 20 depressive symptoms compared to like 12.5, 13. So that's a big difference, right? So it does differ for boys and girls. So that was called moderation. Now, you can even moderate that moderator. So I have a paper coming where, so we moderated that relationship by gender, right? We showed that boys and girls differ. Well, I'm also suggesting that people who are lonely are going to use social media differently than people who aren't lonely, right? You're not going to have a lot of people if you're a lonely adolescent, you might not have a lot of friends on social media, and therefore you might not be seeing all these negative things like people living these happy lives. Well, the results are really interesting, and I'm going to go through this really fast, but what we find is that for girls, it doesn't matter about loneliness. So if I can get rid of this green line, these dots indicate high levels of loneliness, average levels of loneliness, and low levels of loneliness for girls. It really doesn't matter. Girls who are addicted, no matter how lonely or not lonely they are, more addiction equals more depression. Long story short, for girls, more addiction equals more depression, no matter if you're lonely or not. But for boys, something really interesting happens. So I plotted, this blue line represents really lonely boys. So boys who report feeling really lonely, being addicted to social media. So remember, going from left to right in addiction. So really low levels of addiction, really high levels of addiction. Boys who are really addicted actually report, or lonely boys who are really addicted actually report way less depressive symptoms than lonely boys who aren't addicted. So what does that mean in plain English? This graph shows that addiction to social media is actually really beneficial to lonely boys. They report less depressive symptoms than lonely boys who aren't addicted. So that's something that you'll never see. Well, you won't see a lot in research that's saying, hey, being addicted to social media is actually a good thing for lonely boys. That's kind of crazy to think about, right? That everything that you've probably heard throughout your life is that social media is bad. Well, it's not bad for everyone. And this relationship actually exists in like every one of my variables. So lonely addicted boys reported higher self-esteem, higher life satisfaction, lower anxiety, lower depressive symptoms than lonely boys who weren't addicted. So social media actually is really doing something to lonely boys. It's making them feel better. Anyways, I really went in deep into some heavy stats that you'll never see. However, I hope that this showed that it's really not all that bad. Like this output, right, looks really bad. It's a bunch of numbers. It's like, what does any of this actually mean? But really, the only major things that I care about is that this number is less than 0.05. And like, I care about some of this stuff down here because this tells me that gender it's different for girls and boys. But like the bulk of this research or interpreting statistics is, okay, this number is less than 0.05. Is it positive or negative? So that tells you which direction the relationship is in. So I went through a lot of stats here. Most of this you won't need to know or ever need to know, but hopefully it shows that, hey, stats really isn't all that bad, or it can be not all that bad, and it actually can tell you some really interesting stuff. All right. Let's jump into the syllabus and talk more about what this course is actually about. So what will you need? So one of the good things is I'm not requiring you to buy a book. Typically, you have to buy a book for 203, 204. Not going to make you do it. Too expensive. Don't want you to have to buy a book. One of the things you will have to buy is SPSS. So this is a statistical software package that you're going to need for data analysis. I have a website, I think it's on the syllabus, where you can buy it for $35. So relatively cheap. Typically it's like hundreds of dollars. It's relatively cheap. But one of the good things is don't buy it now. Do not buy it now. I'll have you buy it whenever you actually need it. It's a 6-month license. So that way you'll be able to use it for 204 if you take 204 next semester, which I'd advise you all to try to do, just so that way you can take 203, because that's typically how it's done. But you'll be able to use it in 204, so you won't have to buy it again. $35, not too bad. If you're in Morgantown, I believe the library might have SPSS on some of their computers. I was told that they actually just took them off. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd highly recommend that you just get it for yourself. But don't buy it yet. Buy it whenever I tell you in like a month. What else will you need? So one of the other things I recommend is Microsoft Word. You can get it free through the university. You can get all the Microsoft stuff free through the university. But one of the reasons why I recommend it is all of your assignments, I'm going to want you to turn in as .docx files, so just Word files. So right now, if you have a Mac and you're using whatever the default program is, and it gives you like .pages, I don't want that. I'm not going to accept those files just because then I have to convert it myself. But one of the reasons I suggest Microsoft Word is I will be able to help you more when it comes to like formatting stuff, because everything needs to be in APA format. And Google Docs messes with that. Even if you convert it to like a Word file, Google Docs really messes with it. So yeah, I just suggest Microsoft Word. All my feedback that I will be giving you on your assignments will go through Microsoft Word. I like leave comments on things. You can see that in Google Docs, so that's not a huge deal, but I just highly suggest getting Microsoft Word. You get it free through the university. Just get it. I think Microsoft Word is probably the #1 tool that psychologists use anywhere by far, because if you're a psych academic or whatever, you're doing a lot of writing. So it's probably the #1 tool, honestly. But yeah, go ahead and get it. It'll cause you less headache down the road. It's also highly, One of the things that is recommended is that you get the APA 7 manual. So this tells you like all the formatting stuff that psychologists do when it comes to like writing papers and stuff like that. I'm not going to recommend that you buy it. All of this stuff can be found online relatively easily if you type in APA 7, like how to cite an APA 7. We're also going to teach you how to do that this semester. So yeah, if you're more of a, I like having books about this type of stuff, go ahead and get it. I think it's relatively cheap. I don't know. Don't recommend the majority of you buy it unless you really want a hardcover book about how to do citing and formatting stuff in APA. So the course format. So typically this course throughout the semester is taught by two people. You have the lecture part, which is taught by like Dr. Tenenholtz or Dr. Turiano, and then you have the lab part, which is taught by a graduate student. I'm going to be doing both over the summer. So some of this stuff on these slides I may have to be like, well, not technically, but here's how it's going to look over the summer. Essentially, a lot of the times I'm going to be lecturing to you is going to be about principles of research design and analysis. So really the meat and bones of research methods, we're going to be talking about over live discussions. There are going to be some pre-recorded mini lectures on eCampus. So, and I will let you know when to look out for these. They happen not every lecture or not every time we'll have class, but these are like 5 to 10 minute lectures recorded by Dr. Tenenholtz that I just won't have time to cover. And I highly suggest you look at them before we start class. They're really quick. They're like 5. I don't think any of them are more than 10 minutes. But material from there will be on quizzes and exams. So, make sure you're not skipping out on these because like, oh, whatever, they're just pre-recorded stuff. I will I know we have one for next class for Wednesday, but I'll let you know when they're there. They can be found if you go to eCampus, they can be found in like course materials, lectures, and then like you go to week 1 and then like they'll be there. They're not currently up there right now, but I'll throw up the one for Wednesday after this class. Then there's traditionally a lab section. Your lecture and lab sessions are going to be all combined just because, that's just the nature of this course since I'm the only one teaching it. But really in these lab sessions, you're going to be applying the material from lecture on these hands-on experiences. The big goal is completing a research project, and we'll get more into what makes up that research project later on. But traditionally, this class is broken up into lecture and lab. However, it's all mushed together for the summer. So here is what this course, grade-wise, what are we looking at here? So we're going to have 4 exams. You can see them on the syllabus. I believe they're all on Mondays. 4 exams, you're going to have this class time to do it. So they'll open up actually at like, I think I'm going to have them open up at like 1:15 and they'll close at like 3 o'clock. So on exam days, instead of coming to this Zoom, you'll, go to eCampus and take the exam. I think for exams 2, 3, and 4, you're going to need the Respondus lockdown monitor stuff. We can go, hopefully you've had to deal with that before. If not, we'll walk you through it. But keep that in mind. There are anywhere from 10 to 12 quizzes. I may be able to throw an extra one in there, but essentially you need to get 40 points out of there. Each question's worth half a point. I highly suggest you don't skip these, one, because you obviously want to get a good grade in a class, but a lot of the questions, similar questions, are going to be on the exam. So, make sure these quizzes are really are created to make sure that you're keeping up with the material, essentially. So I don't remember off the top of my head with the syllabus, but like the quizzes will go up like immediately after class on Friday. And I think you have until that Sunday to take them. So you have a couple days. Like I said before, they should only take you like maybe 5 minutes max. They're really not bad. There are 12 assignments, which is in the more traditional lab section of the class. Yeah, they are what they are. Most of them are worth like 15 points. But like I said, you'll have a couple stats assignments in there, but the majority of them are leading up towards your final paper. So you'll have like an intro draft. You'll have a methods draft. But we'll talk more about these assignments later. You have one research paper that's due, I think, like on the last day of class, worth 90 points. You have a group presentation that we'll do, presenting your research because you're all going to be doing different research projects. And then we have this participation, which is made up of a couple different things. We have data collection. It is what it is. But you'll also do 2 peer evaluations. So you're going to evaluate the people in your group. This is the time for you to tell me, like, hey, this person hasn't done anything, and they're, which is unfortunate, but it does happen. This person didn't do the work that they're supposed to be doing, and their grade will reflect that. So there's going to be 2 of them, one during the middle-ish of the semester and one at the very end. And then also my evaluation. So my evaluation will come from, people asking questions or answering questions that I have, whether it's asking or answering questions. I think I have some other stuff in the syllabus that I might be doing, like maybe occasionally discussion post questions, or I'll be like, hey, in the chat, type the answer to this. And then that way at the end of class, I have a record of everyone who participated. So, just make sure you're actively trying to participate, make yourself known, so that way you can get a good grade there. Anyways, we're looking at 700 points total. Any questions so far about anything that I talked about up to this point?
Yeah, actually, I do have a question.
Yep.
So I know that you mentioned for the 4 exams, we would have to have the lockdown browser. Is the quizzes going to be the same? Like, do we have to do the quizzes on lockdown? Okay.
No.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. Yeah. Is there anything else that I want to say about? And I'll obviously talk more about like the exams when they start to get closer and what they look like and what you should expect. I believe I will also do like study guides. I don't know if we're going to have like dedicated days to be like, this day is going to be solely on studying or like asking questions. I do know that before every exam, like on the Friday before, I will have like, I'll make sure to have like 20 minutes set aside so that way if you have any questions about anything that could be on the exam, we can cover it there. But I also believe I'll be able to send, I don't hold my word for it, I still have to look, like maybe be able to send out a study guide for the exams. But we'll get to that later in the semester. All right, so some of this is just really standard boilerplate stuff. So I'm going to go through it relatively fast because I don't want to bore you. Attendance and participation, obviously, please participate. No one likes, if I ask a question and I got to sit here for 5 minutes because no one wants to answer it, that's not fun for either of us. Commitment to success. I want to see you succeed. Please come see me during my office hours. One of the things, so I'm a relatively harsh grader. I'm not a harsh grader, but some people may consider myself a harsh grader. However, I want to show you something, but I am committed to your success. I want to show you an example of an assignment. All right, can people see this assignment I just pulled up? Okay, so this is assignment number 4, which will be the first major thing that you'll work on for your paper, and it's the introduction outline. And there's a lot of good instructions here. Definitely something that whenever you do assignments, make sure you're reading the instructions because the instructions are very critical to your success. And what I mean by that is these instructions are really lay out the assignment and what I want to see. So like, for this particular assignment, what you're going to be doing is creating like a couple drafts of your paragraphs. So, I'm going to want your introduction paragraph to your paper. And, we're going to talk about in class, what should make up your introduction paragraph. But also in this assignment, you see, we need an opening sentence that grabs your reader's attention. And we give you an example. You need to transition from your previous work to what's unknown, your topic. Clearly state your topic and convey its importance. For this next paragraph, we want to see, you just state your research question, explicitly state your hypothesis. And then, all these assignments really lay out the instructions of what we want to see. And some of them even lay it out like sentence for sentence, what we want to see in the methods. I will give you a paragraph like in the results. I'm going to give you a correlation paragraph and I'm going to say, I want you to copy and paste this into your homework. into your draft and just change out the numbers that need to be changed out. And I'm going to tell you now, 50 to 75% of people don't listen to what I say, and they don't copy and paste that paragraph. And then, and then I have to take points off for it. Or, they'll pull up this assignment, and, they won't do these things. Like they won't explicitly state their hypothesis. And, I have to take points off for it because it's like, well, it clearly, we talked about it in class. Like I talked to you about what all these paragraphs should make up, but like we explicitly say like, hey, state your hypothesis. And we give you multiple examples. So one of the things I really implore that you do is make sure you're reading the assignments, and very carefully, because there's a lot of good instructions. And I'm not a subjective grader. I hate subjective grading. I'm a very objective grader. So a lot of things, what I would do is I'll pull up, okay, I need to see an introduction sentence. I need to see 2 sentences about this, and I need to see a concluding sentence about this. And if I don't see it, I take points off. I hate subjective grading. I'm very objective when I come to grading. I will provide a lot of feedback when you're writing. So one of the things to note is that you're all early writers, right? I don't expect a top quality paper coming out of your drafts. I fully recognize that. And so but grading for the assignments really comes out of effort. So I want to see that you actually put effort into your assignments. You could have a paper that is just fully, I leave comments on every single line suggesting you change it. But as long as you made an attempt and you follow the instructions, you may get a 14 out of 15 or a 15 out of 15, or, you'll get an A on that assignment. However, if you were to just copy and paste what you did in your final paper, it would be a D, but because I want to see, I just want to see you put in effort for these assignments, because I'm going to give you a lot of feedback and I want to see you incorporate that feedback into your final paper. Anyways, class etiquette, is what it is. We're over Zoom. Try to be presentable to some degree. Class etiquette is what it is. We're all going to college. Exam protocol and miss exam. So this is, look more in the syllabus for this, because I don't remember it all off the top of my head, but I believe that like if you miss an exam, it's up to my discretion whether to allow you to retake it or not. If you're sick or whatever, yes, I'll let you retake it, but missing exam because, oh, I was traveling, that's not an excuse. Please make sure that you can take these exams, when they're supposed to be. So look more into syllabus for the specifics about that. And once again, we'll talk more later when the exams start popping up. Assignment submission, make sure you submit the assignments. There's a lot of wonky timing. Like some assignments need to be submitted at the end of the day. Some assignments can be submitted on Sunday. As each assignment comes up, I'll let you know when it's due. I think I tried to lay it out in the syllabus enough with like asterisks, and like 1 asterisk means this, 2 asterisks means it's due here. But whenever the assignment comes up, I'll talk about it more. I'm pretty lenient when it comes to assignments and when they're turned in. To an extent. So like if something's due at midnight, I'm obviously not going to look at it at midnight. I'll look at it maybe the next morning. So like, if you get it in, technically I'm supposed to take like 25% off. Like if it's a minute late, I'm not like that. As long as it's in before I download it and start looking at them, you're going to get full credit. However, don't try to take advantage of that and be like, oh, so that means I can start working on it at 11 p.m. when it's due at midnight. Please start working on assignments before they're actually due. But I'm pretty lenient when it comes to late work. As long as it's in before I download it, which is typically the next morning. So as long as it's in before that, you'll be fine. In the syllabus, read on your own the academic integrity statement. Plagiarism is not okay in this course. And we'll have like an entire lesson on what plagiarism is and how to avoid it, because it is really important. And you will get written up for it, and I don't want to have to write people up for it because it's not fun, it's a lot of paperwork, and it's not good for you. Essentially, if it's your first time that you plagiarize, I think you get like a 0 on the assignment, and you have to like go do some like modules or something like that. But repeated offenders will, you know, eventually get like a 0 in the course, and it stays in your record. So like if you do it again in another course, you know, it'll have some more have a heavier impact on you. Don't do it. Come to me if you are ever at any point where you're like, I don't know how to reword this. See me before just copying and pasting from the direct source, because I don't have to ready up for plagiarism. Yeah, read the syllabus. And there's a couple more things that I haven't covered. Any questions about assignments or course policies? Okay. So what should I do to succeed? I don't think there's anything different from any other course ever. So engage, ask questions, come see me during office hours, complete all assignments on time and to the best of your ability. Some of the all the assignments are like 15 points, and you'd be like, okay, I can miss one. 15 points, not a big deal. But if you think about it, 15 points is the difference between A on a test and a C on a test, because they're worth 75 points. So 15 points is and you wouldn't be okay getting an A, getting a C. Like you want that A. Just turn in your assignments. 15 points doesn't sound like much, but it does add up. And like I said, this is a cumulative course. So assignment 4, if you don't do assignment 4, it's going to make your life really annoying when you do the intro draft. And if you don't do the intro draft, it's going to make your life really annoying when you have to write the final paper, or when you have to submit the final paper. So especially with the assignments, make sure you're keeping up with them. Make sure you're keeping up with the feedback. I'd also suggest, once you get feedback, like on assignment number 4, once you get feedback on it, incorporate it right then. Don't wait until the final paper is due to then start looking at the feedback, because your life will just be hell. Let's just put it, it's going to be not going to be fun. Communicate, check email and eCampus daily. You should always be checking your email. I did do an announcement on eCampus. I typically probably won't do them. Instead, I'll do it through email. I like doing it through email more. But maybe I'll do both, but always through email, I'll send the updates. Take responsibility for your own learning. Yeah, come see me if you're struggling or falling behind. I can't help you if you don't ask me questions. I bring it up, but there's this one, and that's a pretty common, I can't help you if you don't ask me. Someone in one of my other classes, they left a comment on the paper saying, hey, and this was later in the semester, we're all struggling, but none of us have told you that. And I was like, well, I can't help. I should actually find the actual phrasing that this guy used, because I was like, what do you? I can't help you if you don't come to me. I don't know that you're struggling. And especially hard over Zoom, because I can't. This is why I like seeing people's faces, because I can see people nodding like they're getting it. It's hard to do this over Zoom compared to in person. Anyways, if you're ever struggling, please come see me. So for the next 15 minutes, I want to talk about the research project. So this is kind of what this entire course is working towards, is this big research project. So you're going to be broken up into groups, because we're not going to get into groups today. If there's anyone specifically that you want to work with, if you have someone in class that I've worked with them before, or maybe we're friends or whatever, let me know by tomorrow morning. Just send me an email saying oh, hey, I'd like to work with this, so that way I can get you in the same group together. Anyways, in groups of 5, what we'll be doing is designing a correlational study. So what a correlation is it just looks at the relationship between 2 variables. So in some of the other research that I showed earlier, it looks at the relationship between social media addiction and depression. And all you're doing is, do people who report more of this also report more of that? So this is what you're going to be looking at. You're going to have an independent variable, which is the predictor. I hate that word because it's not really a predictor, but what's expected to be causing the change, and the dependent variable, what's expected to be the effect. We'll get more into this later, but you're going to have 2 variables, and then obviously a hypothesis. You're going to hypothesize the direction of the relationship. But let me go into this next slide, which has it more broken down a little bit more. So you're going to conduct a correlational study, right? We just talked about that, looking at the relationship between 2 variables. So one of the variables we're going to give you. So you're going to have to choose between stress, self-esteem, or one of these personality traits. So like neuroticism, extroversion, conscientiousness, openness to experience, or agreeableness. And we'll go more, I have definitions of these things, so don't, feel too worried if you're not 100% sure. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of these variables and you're going to think of something that could be related to it. So actually in the chat right now, this will be like for the participation, so I'll know who's here. In the chat, just type things that you think are related to some of these variables. So like type in the chat, perceived stress. So what is stress? What could stress be related to? What could self-esteem be related? What could influence self-esteem? Or what could self-esteem influence? And then if you know some of these personality traits, you can also talk about that. But in the chat, I just want you to type in, what do you think could cause people to have different levels of self-esteem, or what could cause people to become stressed? There's no right answer here. There are many correct answers. But just in the chat, just type them all out, and hopefully I'll combine all these and kind of create a pool, and maybe you'll be able to use one of these ideas for your own research study. So I'm just going to look at the chat because I just want to see. Yeah, so we have school, social media, exercise, definitely, stress when online school, social media, workload, social media likes, financial, openness. Yep, people who are extroverted or openness experience may differ in, for something quarantine related. Paying for school stress, of course, social media. All right, so food, family relationships. All right, so there's a lot of different things that could affect any of these, right? Or these could affect anything else. And so what you'll have to do is this other variable. So you're going to write the question. So as a group, you're going to come up with an idea. You're going to say, hey, I think perceived stress and or I'm going to go with self-esteem because that's my research. I think self-esteem and social media are related, right? And so one of the things that you're going to have to do is we already have this scale to measure self-esteem. One of the things that you're going to have to do is come up with a couple questions to assess social media use. So I'm going to try to get you to be more specific. So you think that social media is related to self-esteem. As a group, you're going to try to come up with, okay, well, what specifically about social media? Is it likes? How often you use it? But essentially what you're going to end up doing is you're going to narrow in on one variable, social media likes. Let's just go with likes. And then you're going to come up with like 4 to 5 questions that assess social media likes in some way. And I'll work with you in groups to come up with this. We're obviously going to talk more about it. You don't have to do it right now. Just once you get this is in your horizon. Because that's one of the things you're going to have to do. What's the next slide? Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of this big research study. And what we're going to do is you're going to come up with the idea. We're going to implement it on Qualtrics. You're going to send it out to your family and friends so that way they can collect data. Or so that way they can take the survey. The survey will not take that long, right? It may take a couple minutes for people to do. And then we will analyze that data. We will write it up. And this is kind of the big meat and bones of this course, where a lot of your points will come from, besides from the exams. So with your group, you're going to choose a topic. You're going to find and read background research. One of the first assignments is going to be about that. You're going to write survey questions for your variable, social media use, or whatever your variable is. Collect and analyze the data. You're going to write a paper. Then you're going to present your findings to the class in an oral presentation. So you're going to have like 10 minutes, and each group is going to present, their research. Individually, so that's as a group. Individually, you're going to complete all the homework assignments. So majority of the homework assignments are individual. I think there's like 1 or 2 that you can do as a group. And write the final APA style research paper. Obviously, that's all independent. Yeah, so we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to go briefly over this. But just what do I expect, or what do we expect for this research project. Basically, developing an interesting idea is really important because I want you to actually enjoy what you're doing. So don't come up with a topic just because you think it's easy. Actually try to come up with an idea, going back to this other variable, try to come up with an idea that you enjoy, but also uses background research. So one of the things that we're going to do, one of the first assignments actually is finding research for your idea. So one of the big things next class is I'm going to have you go into the break. I'm going to have you go into your groups and you're going to try to brainstorm ideas. And I want you then to go look at background research to make sure this is feasible. And I'll have an idea. I'm going to circulate through groups and be like, hey, you probably should do a different idea because there's not a lot of research on that. Anyways, you're going to use that background research to guide your idea. Yeah, I hate going through all these. These are probably just boilerplate stuff. But a good satisfactory performance in a presentation is designing well-designed slides, practicing, clearly discussing. This is all just standard stuff, and we can talk more about the project and the paper and the presentation as they come along. So are there any questions so far about anything that I talked about today? All right, so yeah, before next class, make sure you look at that syllabus carefully, email me any questions that you might have. Download lecture notes. So one of the things I'll do is on the course materials in eCampus, I will post the PowerPoints after I present because I do some changes right before. Make sure you download or you look at them. There will be a pre-lecture notes. So it's not currently up. Actually, I think it is a lecture outline introduction. Yeah, so the first one, it's called lecture outline introduction. And before every class, I will post this lecture outline, which really is just kind of a summary of what we're going to talk about, I guess. It doesn't go into too much detail, but kind of a summary. Make sure you look at that. Make sure you watch the pre-lecture. I'll let you know every week or every class when there will be a pre-lecture. There will be one for next class. Yeah, so I will see you, Wednesday at 1:30. We will be I will have a lecture talking about psych research, but we will also be getting into groups. So make sure if you want to work with someone that you email me, be like, hey, I want to work with this person so I can rearrange the groups. I will be staying on until, what did I say, 4:30 or whatever. Probably not till 4:30 today. If you want to talk at all to me, stay on after this class, and I will be glad to talk with you. But yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, please email me. But if not, I will see you all on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you also.
Thank you.